Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into a topic that's quite honestly a total paradigm shift. If you've ever felt like life is just throwing impossible hurdles at you, we're getting into the deep Eastern philosophy behind cultivating the Tao and the reality of so-called demonic tests. So if you've ever asked the universe, why me, when facing a massive obstacle, this explainer is going to unpack the profound spiritual mechanics behind those exact moments. Think of this as our syllabus for the ultimate school of life. We're going to cover spiritual cultivation, redefining what demonic tests actually are, the four purposes behind these tests, surviving internal karmic tests, and finally, overcoming external obstacles. All right, let's jump right into section 1, spiritual cultivation and restoring the original self. So at its core, spiritual cultivation isn't actually about becoming something entirely new. It's more about going back to what you originally were. The source material uses this great analogy. It's like a really bad pothole-filled road that you need to fill in and smooth out. Or, taking a beat-up car into the shop. Cultivation is basically the process of fixing up our own spiritual potholes to restore our flawless, innate human goodness, the state we were in before the world kind of just wore us down. And to really get there, true cultivation has to be a two-part harmony. It's not enough to just believe. You need absolute, unshakable faith on the inside, sure, but that literally has to be matched by tangible action on the outside. It's about getting to that point where your inner realization and your outward actions are entirely united into an unbreakable way of living. Okay, moving on to section 2, redefining demonic tests, the real exams of life. Look, whenever we hear the word demons, our minds instantly go straight to horror movies, right? Ghosts, monsters, things trying to get us. But the source text is actually super clear on this. Scratch all of that. Demonic tests are essentially just exams designed by the universe. They're internal hurdles, karmic debt repayments. Basically, they're orchestrated to see if you're actually ready to graduate to the next spiritual grade. The real demons are usually just our own unchecked thoughts, our ignorance, or the natural blowback from our past actions. There's a brilliant quote here. When the Tao is 1 foot high, the demon is 1 yard high. So as you elevate spiritually, your obstacles are naturally going to scale up to match. It is literally like a video game. As you level up, the boss fights get harder. It's an unavoidable law of heaven. Your newfound resolve absolutely has to be tested and polished. Which leads us to ask, if heaven is so merciful, why the harsh tests? Let's get into section 3, the 4 purposes, to see exactly why heaven tests us. According to the text, the universe is essentially grading us using 4 distinct criteria. These tests are meant to separate the true cultivators from the false ones, erase heavy karmic debts from our past lives, force us to transform our deep-rooted bad habits, and ultimately determine our final spiritual status, or our spiritual fruit. Let's zoom in on that first one for a second. Separating true from false. Hardships act as this incredible, natural filter. The universe is basically checking, are you a true cultivator who stays faithful when everything falls apart? Or are you a false cultivator? The kind of person who's just showing up to save face, or who immediately blames heaven and quits the second things don't go their way. And regarding our ultimate spiritual status, it makes total sense when you think about it logically. You literally cannot achieve a high spiritual rank without passing the absolute hardest exams. Heaven orchestrates these massive tests because, without facing profound problems, your wisdom just can't grow. No pain, no gain, right? This ties right into erasing karmic debt. The source explains that humanity has been trapped in a cycle of reincarnation for 60,000 years. Think about that time frame. Over all those countless lifetimes, through all our greed and anger, we have racked up a massive ledger of sins. So every severe trial, illness, or disaster you're facing right now, that's actually the active process of repaying and wiping out that incredibly heavy ancient debt. Let's ground all this heavy theory with a pretty mind-blowing real-world case study in section 4, surviving internal karmic tests, and the case of the 30-year debt. Picture this. There's a deeply devoted cultivator. She had a temple in her home, took vows to be vegetarian. Her faith was incredible. But despite all of that goodness, her husband gets into a horrific car crash and loses his leg. Naturally, she was absolutely devastated. Wouldn't you be? She furiously blamed heaven, totally convinced it was unjust, feeling like her years of devotion offered her family zero protection. She was literally on the verge of throwing all her spiritual progress down the drain. Feeling so deeply wronged, she went straight to a spiritual gathering to confront her teacher, Master Ji Gong. She was fully planning to demand answers and then just walk away from her path forever. But the master stopped her in her tracks with a crazy revelation about her past. He asked her, "At what age did your grandfather die?" She said 30. "What age did your father die?" 30. "And how old are you right now?" 30. Then he drops this horrifying truth bomb. In a past life, she, her mother, and her grandmother actually conspired and murdered a man. They left his 30-year-old wife, a widow, who was so distraught that she ended her own life. So now, in this lifetime, at age 30, that exact karmic revenge finally arrived. But here is the incredible twist the master explained. Because of her intense spiritual cultivation and all the merit she built, the fatal debt was drastically reduced. Her husband didn't die. The debt was paid with just a lost leg. Far from heaven abandoning her, her steadfast faith had literally saved his life. Once she realized that, her rage just completely melted into immense gratitude. And that brings us to our final graduation requirements in Section 5, Overcoming External Obstacles and Staying the Course. There's this really powerful quote: "The torch of ignorant emotion can burn a forest of merit spanning 10,000 miles." Think about that. When you feel insulted, wronged, or slandered, holding on to that anger is exactly like lighting a match in a bone-dry forest. That one tiny moment of furious ignorance can completely incinerate all the good merit you've spent years painstakingly building up. So to protect your merit, you've got to be hyper-aware of the traps. The text points out a few specific ones. You've got external tests, where society outright slanders your beliefs. Then there are smooth tests. This is when society acts like a giant dye vat, throwing so much wealth and success at you that you just get comfortable and forget to practice your faith. You also have contrary tests, dealing with terrible attitudes from your own spiritual peers. And, this is wild, the text specifically warns about exactly 36 fake patriarchs. These are false leaders who will try to blind you with flashy, fake miracles, just to see if your faith is grounded in actual truth or if you're just hunting for magic tricks. So, wrapping this all up, this explainer really shifts the entire paradigm of suffering. Hardships aren't monsters hiding under your bed. They are grueling, absolutely necessary exams in the school of spiritual elevation. So the next time you face a massive obstacle, an unfair criticism, or a truly devastating loss, I want you to stop and ask yourself, are you going to view it as a random, cruel punishment, or will you recognize it as the ultimate exam sent to polish your soul? The choice is entirely yours. Take a look at your life right now. What test are you currently taking?